Excuse me, I'm next in line. Move. Excuse me, I'm next in line. Watch out. Excuse me, I'm next in line. I said move. Excuse me, I'm next in line.
And today we have a special guest with us, Kristin Richardson Jordan, two very popular 2000s basketball player names, by the way.
Yeah, and I played basketball too. Actually, in high school, I was varsity all 4 years.
What was your position?
Forward.
Okay. Oh, you're almost the biggest one on the court. All right.
Yeah, I was not that good, so despite the names, that career did not continue in college.
Just stand there and like put your arms up because you're tall. That's all they tell tall people to play ball.
That's pretty much what my coach said.
See, exactly. Yeah.
Oh. That box.
I'll just put the box here.
In the back. No, the box, yeah.
Put it here.
I need something here.
All right. So there's not actually much in the world of sports right now, except for the fact, nothing's going on. Sports entertainment is running. And you'll see crowds in Impact Wrestling because they're pre-recorded. But AEW decided to do shows without an audience. WWE actually has the Performance Center, so they're just using their own facilities for it. And it was really depressing last Monday, which was 3/16. If anybody knows, that's the Stone Cold holiday. And he legit has this whole call and response thing that he's supposed to do, right? So, he says something, and the crowd's supposed to go, what? And he has to do it himself. And then he's like, and now give me a hell yeah. And there's no one in the audience to give him a hell yeah. So they get the nerdiest guy on the cast to, come on and do, hell yeah. And he's like, all right, I just have to give you a stunner. Like, this, yeah. He's like, come here. So that was probably the most depressing moment I've ever seen in all of wrestling. And when he said it, I don't know if he's just so used to doing his routine that he said it, but I was literally sitting there like, no, there's no way in hell he's doing this. Like, he's asking for the audience behind the screen. Like, this isn't a PBS Kids show. This isn't Dora the Explorer. What's going on? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So that's the only thing from the world of sports I want to talk about, because that was just absolutely hilarious. I love Stone Cold, but dude, really? Really? All right.
Well, he made light of it.
He did. He tried. He tried. I was still just, I couldn't. That was just like, I literally, I've never had to do this while watching wrestling. Even when it gets messy, you want to see it. I couldn't look at the screen. So sad. So sad. All right. But we have Kristin here, and we have her talking about her campaign. She's running for city council in District 9. So, first question, because like I told you, I'm from the Bronx, but I grew up mostly in Harlem. Like, my mom's family's there, the matriarch house is there, so that's where we go, like, all the holidays. But I was going around, I was asking people, like, do they know if they're in District 9? And they're like, I don't know. So, my very first question, so that way you can kind of help these people out, what are the boundaries of District 9?
So that's a really good question. And, people don't tend to know if they're in District 9 or not. So what we say is Central Harlem. Okay. And basically it runs from 110th Street to 155th Street, and it runs from 5th Avenue all the way over to St. Nicholas. So it's this basic block, like right there in the center of Harlem. Just for funsies, it's actually Community Board 10. So, yes, so it's City Council District 9, and you have Community Board 10.
They just want to confuse
just
people.
Just for fun,
yeah. Got it. And are you originally from this area, or?
Yeah, so I'm third generation Harlem, so,
like me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a ton of love for the community. My mom is there and was still there. My great aunt, she unfortunately passed a few years back, but she was an original tenant at Lenox Terrace, which oddly enough is where I live now. So it's this weird circling back around. My grandparents also lived in Harlem as well, so it's been a family,
area.
Yeah, it's a family.
It's not the same Harlem anymore. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's definitely, you see the change in our lifetime. It's just like, wow. I knew Harlem was changing one day because I'm leaving my aunt's place, and she's right there, 125 St. Nick, right? So I'm leaving there. I'm catching the crosstown bus to go to the 6 train, And on the bus, I see a white lady carrying a lot of luggage walking by. Um, actually, I think it is Fifth Ave. Walking by Fifth Ave, and there's guys sitting on the stoop, and they just watch her go by. And it's like 12 o'clock at night, and I'm just like, wait a second, what? I was like 14 years old. Like, they just did not, they didn't even like follow her, like looking. I was like, wow, it's changing. That was my first moment. My first moment.
I think like most of the changes that I have witnessed in the neighborhood have led to a situation where a lot of the people that I know and love are either struggling to stay there or have had to leave. And the rent is
Going out.
sky high, way too high, and it's a failure, in my opinion, failure on the part of legislators to actually legislate and to actually regulate landlords.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
So that's a big part of my platform that I think will help with some of those changes. And, it's not that new people can't move in.
no,
It's just that it's not acceptable that new people are moving in at the expense of those who have been there. It's
right. And
unacceptable to
obviously for
displace people.
generations, right?
Yeah.
So break down your Harlem plan. That's literally named after the area.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, and that will help with the District 9 issue.
Right.
So we say, Harlem, y'all are District 9. So the platform actually is Harlem. It spells it out. The H stands for holding police accountable and abolition. A is for actually affordable housing. R is for redistribution of wealth and resources, taking care of those most in need and most oppressed.
Okay.
L is for living longer. It's a care package for Harlem seniors. And also with that, I have advocated for greater gun control. E is environmental justice as well as education for all. So I'm a teacher, so I have a lot of thoughts about that. And M is meaningful change. So when I win, I will be the youngest in history in the position. I'm 33 years old. And I'll also be the first out of LGBTQ.
Now, I had a couple questions about each part, right?
Yeah.
So the first one was holding police accountable. In your plan, you mentioned something about youth courts and drug courts. So I just wanted more of a breakdown about these two things. Like, what specifically are those as opposed to just, the current standard?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the question, because the standpoint that I'm coming from, just to be fully transparent and honest, is I'm a prison abolitionist. So I do believe in abolition democracy. And for those who maybe want to dive a little deeper, I would recommend, a whole bunch of books, but I would definitely recommend reading Angela Davis's Abolition Democracy. And it would give you a good sense of sort of the vision and position that I hold. So the standpoint that I'm coming from is that when we have somebody who does damage in our society or commits a crime in our society, what we do is we pinpoint and pigeonhole that person, label them as the problem, and then isolate and punish them for what we have deemed as their offense. The view that I want to have around crime is the idea of we are collectively responsible. We're collectively responsible for each other. And that something along the way has been a failure systemically and socially that has led to ruptures and pain and hurt. So when we're looking at the court system as we see and know it now is incredibly adversarial, incredibly punitive, and it's not based on actually healing. Like it's
Right.
it's not based on restorative justice. It's not based on fixing what's wrong. It's not based on educating.
Right.
It's not based on healing.
Yeah.
So what we have is a world that has pain that we have now just added more pain to.
Right.
So when you look at youth courts and drug courts, what we're looking at is alternative models where instead of the typical punitive model of, okay, you've done this, which we in society have deemed as a crime, we're sending you to jail, and we could totally go and examine why certain things are crimes in the first place, because there's a lot of racial bias
Right.
even within that, what we are calling a crime. But that point aside, what we're looking for in youth courts is how do we have a model that leads to education and then sort of restorative justice, and drug courts the same thing, as opposed to punitive models.
Okay. I mean, we see a lot of examples of prisons in Europe that actually have a better rate of, like, at the point they had to start closing them down because people were actually coming out of jail reformed, and so it wasn't a cyclical system like it is here.
Right.
So is it completely like getting rid of prison in that physical sense, or the idea that we actually turn it from being just the prison where you're locked down and you pretty much are going to spend your life coming in and out of, or the idea of like we're using that kind of area or device for, let's say, your term, and turning you into a reformed citizen to the point where like now we use it for what we need it for, we develop people to be better, and now we can start closing them down. Like, is it like we physically don't want it there, or we want to make it useful?
Well, I think prisons as we see and know them now should not exist.
Okay.
However, what I see it as is a trajectory, steps towards that type of society.
Okay.
So I definitely could see emphasis on reforms, emphasis on fixing what's there, but I hesitate with that because sometimes
There's a lot. Yeah.
sometimes
there's a lot
what
to
we
fix.
call like fixing isn't actually fixing, right? But I do think that this is a business that needs to go out of business.
Yeah. And I think you
That
just
is
hit the
what I'm
magic
saying.
word there with business, because
Yes.
that's what it's turned into.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it needs to be totally restructured and reworked to a point where, and place where, frankly, I don't think it would be recognizable in terms of what we now consider prison. So in that way, I am an abolitionist. I also think that I would like to see us close the gaps. A lot of crime stems from inequality in education, inequality in quality of life. And when we start addressing those things, we will start to see change.
Okay. All right. And then the next one was about affordable housing. So the specific terms you used were slumlord buildings and tenant townships. So what is it exactly you want to see in the transition from the slumlord buildings to the tenant townships? Like, are you trying to give the people of Harlem more, I guess, ownership?
Yes. Ownership is definitely the key word, and I think it's really important that we own our spaces, own our homes, and own places in our community. And I think there's been a lot of things that have been set up for us not to be able to do that, and for us not to be able to be successful with that. So how do we get rid of the roadblocks and indeed the bias and indeed the design that keeps us from having the home ownership? Specifically with the point in the platform that you're referring to with the slumlords, what I'm saying is that landlords who don't take care of their buildings, who simply are profiting off of tenants in those buildings with the game plan of letting them go into decay so then they can just build another building or own another building and do the same thing, that those landlords should lose the building. And those tenants should get the building. And that ownership should transfer.
My aunt's building, legitimately the foundation, I mean, it's been around for years. The foundation went out, they had to redo it. All the tenants had to move 20 blocks north for like 2-3 years. And when they came back to this newly renovated building, they tried to raise the rent on them. You know how hard they had to fight to get something affordable? So even in a condition like that, yeah. Even in a condition like that, it's just, to me, it's asinine. They should just go back to, you had to fix it. It was a dangerous place. I understand. But your renovations are really just for the tenants to return, as far as I'm concerned. So I think a lot of these people don't deserve to own a lot of these buildings.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think of housing in a larger sense as a human right, which we are worlds away from. But I honestly do believe that people do have the right to a home, and so that is why I also advocate for putting those who are homeless in homes, not shelters, actual housing, and how we set that up. We can look at systems and places that have done this and have tried this, and we can even look at models that have shown us that it does cut costs and that it does make for better outcomes in mental emotional health, that it's more likely people will find jobs, that there are various other reasons.
Okay.
So,
Now, in the interim of that, I work a lot. I come across a lot of homeless people in my day job. And one thing that they complain about is that they legitimately choose to live in the street because it's safer, or in some cases, oddly enough, cleaner than some of the shelters. So in the interim of figuring out a plan to develop proper housing for them, um, we've spoken about it several times, me and Charles, about how we have abandoned buildings with people living in the street, and it doesn't add up. But in the meantime, with the shelter system, is there any plans in your plan to figure out reforming the current shelter situation in your area and in the city, of course?
so I'm not hugely about reforming the shelter system, and that is because I ultimately feel like that is not working, and I ultimately feel like that is subpar living. That is actually less than what people deserve.
Hmm.
So, what I would be for and would want to look into is housing the homeless and starting with something, even if it was something small in my district, where it was a pilot program or something where we tried that out, and then we could measure and show the value and the outcomes of that, and then try to spread that to citywide. Because uh, in Utah, they actually house the homeless,
Right.
and what they saw there was that it did make a huge impact on society in general
And
to
I
do that.
know that
So
it
I
definitely
really,
helps the mental state. Like, they give you
yeah,
a home, and now you want to keep it. You don't feel like you're lumped in with everybody else, and it builds a sense of pride. And that alone can change a person's entire perspective and goal setting. So I think it's a great idea. It's just something I was curious about. And then the education and environment, right? Actually, I skipped one. So you had like the live long and well. So what is your current plan for the elderly? Like, what is the senior care package that you have already put together for them?
So it includes a couple things. The biggest piece is that I'm advocating for more funding for our senior centers, our local senior centers.
Okay.
I actually right now work at two of them as an art consultant, and I do current events and poetry programming at A. Philip Randolph and Central Harlem Senior Center.
Okay.
And so I have talked to seniors there about what is it that we can do, and what I heard from those seniors is that the centers themselves need more staff so that the seniors can get the care that they really need
Right.
and deserve. It also would help with promoting the space itself, because despite some of the best efforts, there are people in the neighborhood who don't realize the resources and the things that are there at the senior center. I also have done research around the matter, and the fact is that seniors need an advocate.
Right.
And studies show that having an advocate actually leads to better senior care, even more so than income.
Right.
So, what they need is somebody who can help them navigate, especially here in New York, where we have this complicated bureaucracy and we have programs that are actually meant to serve that people cannot
Get
get
to,
access to the program
or even know exists.
or find out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think more staffing in the senior centers will help connect people with the resources that are available. So that's one of the points. The other is senior housing,
Okay.
so that we make sure that seniors, have affordable housing and can stay and can live even on their fixed incomes.
Right.
And then the other thing is, technology support, because we are in increasingly more digital world,
Right. Right.
and our seniors could use that support. If we take right now the coronavirus, right, everything is moving to this digital online world,
Right.
and we are seeing who has access to that and who doesn't. And some of that's economic, and some of that's learning ability, or just not having the technical skills.
Right.
you know. And I think that we've made some efforts, albeit I heard there's plenty of work to do, but we've made some efforts with giving laptops and computers to the school students who don't have access. But I would also love to see some effort to give computers to the elderly who don't have access. And with that, can we do some teaching as well?
Yeah, I've only
Because
seen
they're
programs for
isolated.
phones. I've only
Yeah.
seen programs for phones where, like, giving them maybe their first smartphone, and even that, it's not even a walkthrough process. And from what I've seen, it's more so just about distributing it to them. So I think any classes about using handheld technology
Yeah.
or basic just Googling even you know
Yeah.
I could use a class on TikTok personally. I can't. Everything else I'm fine with, but like, I think that's actually a great idea because the as the world becomes more digital, and I mean, you even have the UN talking about trying to have the globe at least 66% connected by, I think it's 2024. That means that more and more people of various age groups are just going to have to become more technologically savvy because the world is just advancing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that if they're going to be a part of the community, and especially in Harlem, I mean, like you said, you're third generation. A lot of us from Harlem stay in Harlem, do our stuff in Harlem, and it's not like, oh, we can't get out. It's like, we like Harlem. It's always been like an area of culture
Yes.
and our people and things like that. Either you're from the west side or the east side, like, people just love the area. I had a friend just visit from Norway and was just like, this is one of the coolest places I've ever been. So, it's very important that we can make it so that way those of us from old to young are just capable of connecting on some platform there. We're going to go to our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to finish this, and then we're going to learn more about Kristin Richardson.
I saw you when I walked in. I ain't gonna lie. Believe me, normally I could see you in me, 'cause you seem like my kind of guy. But you ain't why I came here tonight, and pretty soon I'll be gone. Don't wanna get tied up with you right now, 'cause I'm gonna tie one on. Just give me the bottle. I'm going down in flames. I only came in here for one thing, baby. That's to forget why I came. You can't drown your sorrow. At least that's what they say. Well, just give me the bottle, 'cause baby, I wanna learn the hard way. All right, maybe just one dance. Just one little kiss. Here we go down this road, but I know that you know that I should have known better than this. Hey, I'll take my chances, take you along for the ride. We'll bet it on the fireball, baby, 'cause it's gonna be one hell of a night. Just give me the bottle. Let's go down
back. So we were going through your Harlem plan and how you plan to fix and change home for us.
Yes.
All right. So then we made our way to the E for education and environment. So just from the name of it, is part of the plan to teach more like environmental sciences and justice in the schools?
So I definitely down for that. But what actually happened is we packed a lot into that E. So so we have policy. Me and my team, we have some policy ideas and plans around education, and then we also have some policy and plans and ideas around environmental justice.
Okay.
And so we did stretch that E to cover
Right. It's
both
E.
yes, to cover both areas. Around education, I'm a teacher, so I really wanted to see more funding for the schools and a model that actually helps level the playing field, you know. So, for example, there was a lot of talk and controversy around the specialized high schools.
Right.
Still is, always, you know. And I definitely have thoughts on that. However, the bigger question is, why do we have a system in place where we have students competing to get into these specialized high schools as if that's the only route and only ticket out of poverty?
Right.
Why haven't we set up our schools in a way that sustains growth and like makes a pathway for students, you know,
Right.
and all students equally?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is the basis that I'm coming from, and I would like to see an expanded community school model. Now, are you familiar with community schools?
It's new to me, so.
So, and probably others too, but it's basically this model where the school gets increased resources and they get connected to the local nonprofits, and the school becomes basically this one-stop shop for a whole bunch of resources for the student. So not just the education, but also is there health care? Is their family in a home? Do they need any resources? So is there mental, emotional, psychological support?
Right.
You know, so we start looking at the whole student, not just the academic piece. Unfortunately, where it is now is this is used as a last-ditch effort, usually in failing schools,
Right.
as sometimes a way to save the school. But my point is, why aren't we just doing this? Like
Period,
across
yeah.
the board,
Right.
just giving this as a structure? And the answer is, because that's expensive, right?
So diverting funding more towards into education is a big part.
Yeah. And my response to that is, you know, if we can come up with $10 billion to build new jails, okay,
Right.
then we should be able to find money for the schools. It's a matter of our political priorities.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to fix something technical at the moment.
Because you love music, we have it all here.
LDM Radio.
Station, solo hits musicales.
Yeah.
Porque te encanta la música, te la tenemos toda aquí. Only music hits para ti.
Okay, and we're back. So you were talking about building, well, one, to divert money from building new jails and putting it in education, but also
Right.
to build these more community-built education programs.
Right.
And so in these, you know, you mentioned that, there'd be stuff to help with, you know, like psychological health, families that are dealing with, let's say, tough personal situations overall. Is this all coming from locally, like local businesses or, you know, sponsors and stuff like that that would also be invested into the schools?
Yeah, I would like to see those connections be built. And in the community school model, we often already see that. So in that model, there is a community liaison whose only job is to connect dots, connect those who are in the school with those who are working outside the school, build that community as a center. And I definitely want to see and support that on a local level. And it would definitely be looking at nonprofits that are in the neighborhood and businesses that are in the neighborhood, and how do we connect those to the local school in the neighborhood.
Okay, that makes sense. And you were didn't get a chance to get to the environmental portion of it.
Yes, so with the environmental justice piece, I would like to see us expand composting efforts in Harlem. It would make a really big impact in terms of our footprint and just taking care of Mother Earth.
Okay.
I'm also for something that's been proposed coming out of, I know, DSA on the local level, is a Green New Deal for the city,
Okay.
sort of like how we've seen and heard about AOC's Green New Deal on a national level, but something we do locally.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but we have to take care of our planet. I mean, we have to. We have to.
I would just be happy with us starting to actually use and keep up the community gardens that we have around the city. I think I think that'd be a major first step, and I know we yearly run events at community gardens here in the Bronx. And we have like a little concert to get people to come and see the garden, and we work with the staff at the Willis Avenue Community Garden to set things up there. So just to get more people involved in that, I think it's something that even more so for the average citizen, but I think it's great for just the kids to have that kind of experience, someplace where they can go and work with that, especially like spring and summertime.
That's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful idea. A few months back, I went to an event that actually a friend of mine hosts, Joanne Powell, and it's called Made in the Garden. And it's art, it's different local artists doing art in the community garden.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely beautiful and a really great space. And while I was there, I met the head of Harlem Grown, which is basically an effort to support community gardens and
Right.
also to do teaching in the schools that connects back to like the earth and healthy living. So definitely more efforts like that. I agree with that.
And last but not least is the M. So the meaningful change. You mentioned that you'd be the youngest person to do it. You'd be the first of the LGBTQ community to do it. Why are you specifically like running? Like, what made you like? What was the day of you were like, you know what? I need to just do this. Like, what made you think that I need to be that meaningful change?
Well, what it is needing. Oh gosh, there's so many things. but needing to see something, right? And looking for it outside myself, and eventually getting to the point of saying, actually, I'm going to look for that in myself, right? So one of the things that I was looking for outside myself is for more to happen on all these different policy levels, particularly in the direction of being progressive. I do identify as a democratic socialist. There's a lot of things that I would like to see said and done, and looking and saying, oh, well, this leader I feel isn't doing enough for the community. This person I feel isn't doing enough for the community, right? So getting to a place of saying, well, okay, but what about me? What am I going to do for the community, right? The other point in place was in terms of symbolic representation, which I can promise you from my work with students is so important.
You saw the change after Black Panther,
yes.
didn't you? You saw the change after Black Panther, didn't
yes,
you?
Yeah. Listen, the kids saw that movie, and afterwards they were turned up. They felt powerful. They felt like they could do anything.
A whole new sense of African pride.
Yes, and we need that.
We
that.
do.
And also, we deserve that. We deserve to have
It's a
it.
lot we deserve.
So it's like, how do we get, well, there is a lot we deserve. So how do we get from here to what we deserve,
Right.
you know? And part of my reason for running was I really want to disrupt things.
Right.
And that's why actually the slogan of the campaign is disrupt the district, right?
Yep.
Because I want to disrupt the powers that be. I want to disrupt what we see as a leader, right? Who is, the old, straight, white man, rich.
I mean, in
Yeah.
all honesty, what's so funny about that is that so on the larger scale, right, the federal race, and all the candidates were popping out, and there was all this, and I mean, everybody, this was the most, I hate to use the word diverse, but diverse field that we've seen in a while.
It was.
And in all honesty, I was listening to all the different arguments, and there were some people who were making really great points, but by the end of everything, I really sat down and I thought about it, right? And in a country that has become the mess that it has become. And I'm there, and I was big on Bernie. I was really disappointed when Hillary was the candidate last time because I really felt that Bernie had that momentum that could topple the Trump idea. But I sat there and I'm watching everything going down, and I was just like, you know what? Honestly, I think Biden is the one who has the chance. And we're seeing this big thing happening after Super Tuesday and all that. And I'm just like, what it is that essentially he's just a Democratic Trump.
I am not excited.
I'm not either.
But first off, let me be clear. I am on the not Trump bus.
I think that's what it boils down to.
That bus is leaving the station. I will be on it. But I was not on the Biden bandwagon. I actually was very excited and interested in hearing from a number of different candidates.
Yeah.
I am a member of DSA,
right.
And Bernie is the DSA candidate, so I am a Bernie supporter. But I also really appreciated that Marianne Williamson came out with a real plan around reparations.
Right.
I also appreciated that we had Cory Booker and Kamala Harris in the race, so that we have some black folk in the race. And I really appreciated Buttigieg for not only being a queer candidate, but being a queer candidate and also a person of faith. And when he was on the debate stage talking about that, I mean, my heart jumps, because that is, I am a woman of faith, and I am also a lesbian, and I don't see conflict in that.
Right.
But we constantly get barraged like, oh, you can't have your faith and your sexuality as well. And I think, that's something. So there was good things that came out of it.
I was literally sitting there.
But it's kind of frustrating that all of that happened, and we wound up still
I've been sitting here the last 2 months literally just saying to myself, like, look, the whole point of this is to get Trump out. So the be-all, end-all is you got to find that middle candidate that kind of like, you know what, he's willing to at least hear what everyone else is saying. He does have the experience behind him. And honestly, he can go word for word with Trump on a dumb level and beat him on an intelligent level. You know what I'm saying? So he'll speak to the people of a lower economic market and to the people of the top 1%. And I think the smartest move, I've been saying this for the last 2 months, is like literally he needs to, if he's gonna be the winner, take a lot of these other people he was running against and build a cabinet with them, because you have a lot of people with a lot of really good ideas, and I feel that they're more specialized in areas than him. And that would be the best way to develop the Democratic leadership going into the next 4 years that we need, because you have someone like Buttigieg who comes from a perspective he can never understand. You have someone like Elizabeth Warren that definitely knows way more about the education system than he would, because she actually experienced it. And you have everybody with these particulars that he's not well versed in, but by making him the face, you allow a lot of people who were swing votes or people who would just, they voted against Hillary just because she was a woman, like now have a Democratic person that they would vote for just because it is the old white guy. And I think that's something that needs to change. But in the effort of needing to bump out Trump, let's utilize what we have.
But that's also the piece that frustrates me, because I think that sentiment is sort of where people are at, and they sort of feel like, oh, well, we have to sacrifice like what could be more progress for a very pragmatic approach, because we think this is the one that can win. When it shouldn't be that way.
I agree.
And I really believe that there could have been real potential and possibility for someone to win who is inspirational as opposed to a settling.
And I think what works
and really making change in a really forward movement, as opposed to just this isn't Trump.
But I think what the difference is that this time around, with everything that Trump has done, the Republican Party is actually, for the most part, you have random people, like Mitt Romney, who are willing to be like, I just can't do this. But for the most part, I think after seeing what happened from Bush to Obama, they don't want to start calling out their leader this time around. So you don't have the chance for opportunity with Obama. I think after the whole Bush thing, and there was, the weapons of mass destruction problem, the fact that soldiers were still out there when they were told they weren't gonna be, there was a unanimous decision that you need a representative of change. Like even the Republican representative was someone known for being able to work with Democrats, which we don't normally see. And we don't have that same feeling around because now Republicans aren't trying to, we're not getting purple. It's definitively blue and red this time around. And so at that point, I think pragmatism is just the way to go to at least push things in the right direction. Unfortunately.
I don't all the way agree with that, but I do understand what you're saying. That's the pragmatic view. I really like the vision and purpose of political revolution that Bernie Sanders put forward. I believe that not only should we have the potential for another Obama, but we should have the potential for someone left of Obama, because there were real policies and changes that I did not agree with Obama, and he was the first black president, and I do think symbolically that's beautiful. I'm now ready for an Asada. I'm now ready for let's go.
I feel you.
I feel you. Let's go. But I understand that you can't let's go and leave the rest,
right?
the rest of the country. So it is going to be a collaborative effort. Where I do think we agree is in building coalition. I definitely agree with that.
With that idea, do you believe that at this point, especially right now, with everything happening with Corona, and definitely there's a need in government in general, and you're starting to see it where everyone's kind of all right, let's actually do something together. Is it the time for Bernie to continue his campaign, or is it time for him to be we need to focus on building Biden, or just at least end my note, and we'll focus on the Biden thing after we focus on America?
Well, at the risk of giving a politician's answer to that, I really do feel like that's something up to the Bernie campaign, and I am a supporter, and I sort of trust him to make the right decision about whether it is more advantageous to stay in and push forward and keep the issues out there and keep the conversation out there, or whether so I would support his decision around it either way.
And honestly, since he hasn't run a negative campaign, I wouldn't think that's a bad idea at all, because he does raise a lot of discussion and issues that some people aren't talking about, and we've seen him actually a part of the whole Excalibur project here in New York, and where you see him actually trying to push these ideas and actually trying to get them done and actually going for it. So I don't think it's a negative to actually have his name and his views in any conversation right now. But it's just is it the time? Is the only thing that needs to have a lot of people talking about it. So I just wanted to see what your perspective was on that. But I did say I wanted to get some random things out of you. So. All right.
Okay.
So let's talk about Corona real quick, because I know online you definitely have some opinions. So how do you feel things have been handled on a local, state, and federal level?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. Okay. Well, on a local level, I think it actually has been handled the strongest. And by that, I do not mean politically. I mean simply communally.
Okay,
I mean
definitely.
simply that I have talked to neighbors and seen neighbors come out and support each other in really amazing and beautiful ways, bringing food to someone who's elderly in the building, knocking on your neighbor's door before you go to the store and seeing if they need anything, checking in on each other, because there's a lot of social isolation, making extra calls to people. I think I am really, Harlemites are always touching my heart. That's why I'm running. I love the community. I love the people. We are a special tribe. But I've really seen, above and beyond sort of just love for the community coming at that local, human, neighbor to neighbor level.
Right. No, I agree.
And that I think has been really inspiring. Politically, it's a mess. It's a mess.
I couldn't agree more.
Politically, it's a mess.
There's so much indecision, and
I mean, we don't have order. We don't have strategy. It seems like the vast majority of time we don't even have clear communication. So
I'm enjoying the fact that you've had everyone say we don't have enough medical supplies, And yet, it's taking like everyone to be like, hey guy, order medical supplies. Like, order them to make medical supplies. He's like, it's Friday. Can we get back to this on Monday? and you're wondering, but he's gonna give you $1,000 though, right? Like that's the counterbalance. Like, we could all get the disease, but we can get $1,000 if he's president. I don't think that's exactly a fair trade-off. I mean, I'm never gonna say no to money, but I'd also like to have my health. Isn't it?
Right.
Isn't that the one thing that they normally tell you? Like, when you have absolutely nothing, at least you have your health. Yeah, I think that's kind of like what should always be in your back pocket.
Yeah, I think.
But
I
do
think
you
we
really
should
want the
be-
$1,000 and then be struggling next tax season?
I mean, Andrew Yang didn't
'Cause they-
exactly have the answer for that either.
Yeah,
but-
they still don't know if it's they still
I
don't
mean,
know if it's going to be a
there's
loan of your
definitely
tax
things to
or
work.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
There's definitely a lot to work out with it, but I don't think it has to be either or. I definitely think
It should be both.
we should have both, and I definitely think the nation has means, right?
Right.
The nation does have capital. The nation does have money. Is like I was saying with the prison and the school scenario, it's a matter of political priorities.
Right.
So are we concerned about corporations right now, or are we concerned about people? Are we concerned about those who are wealthy and already going to be very well off,
Right.
or are we concerned about those who are most in need and most oppressed right now?
So one thing, when I went to one of your events last month, right, in February, and one thing that you made sure to break down was kind of like what a democratic socialist is, because socialism is like the number one feared thing in America since the 80s. And the idea of how it's simply just a redistribution of the wealth from the top people to everyone else who needs it, because you can take more from them and they're still rich and everyone balance out. Like, it's,
Exactly.
essentially how the unions made America work before Reagan, right? For some people who are still afraid of the idea, I think it's kind of that idea when you go to check cashing and how they tell you, like, you have a larger portion taken out from when you make more money, essentially, right? Like, it's that simple idea. It's not too far off to make it more like user friendly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely
We
way
can
more
use that.
complicated than
Yeah,
that, right?
there's a lot of complication in tax code. I wouldn't even be able to begin to touch the
That's all it is.
surface. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It is kind of like that. It is a progressive tax, though, right? So
Right.
that's what we're doing. But what we're also dealing with is a whole bunch of loopholes
Oh yeah, definitely.
that have not been addressed.
I mean, we call Trump rich, and yet he's filed bankruptcy how many times?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
and also we have yet to see his tax record,
That's
so
one of
we,
them, yeah,
we don't particularly know
Right.
what's going on there.
Trump and asking
Right.
for data is not, I don't think the two things actually go together. It's always fake news. Like, remember Obama wasn't born in
Wait,
America.
Are you calling the man who coined the term fake news
Fake
the
news.
bringer of
You
fake
can't ask
news?
him for data. He's talking about data that never
That's
existed.
accurate.
Like, he is fake
Yeah,
news.
that's
why
accurate.
It's perfect for him. So, I avoid talking actual facts and Trump usually together. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's and I mean it is funny. It is funny, but it's also like sad on
At
the
the same- yeah.
at the same time, because on a real level, people are struggling and people are going to get hurt.
Yeah.
My mother is an emergency room physician, and she is right now in the ER in Harlem at Mount Sinai.
Oh,
And
she's at Luke's.
She's at Mount Sinai.
Yeah,
East
Mount.
Harlem.
Oh, East Harlem. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, not in the district, but
No,
it's okay.
Because I mean, you have St. Luke's in there, and I'm at Mount Sinai West.
I think they actually didn't they have a merger? Didn't they have?
Yeah, Mount
something with that?
Mount
That
Sinai and
was it?
St. Luke's. Yeah, Roosevelt, St. Luke,
combined.
Roosevelt. Yeah, Mount Sinai bought them out. So I'm at West, which is the sister hospital to Luke's.
Oh, so I'm sorry, you're completely correct then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I guess now it's
Yeah.
Morningside or Mount Sinai Morning. They've changed their name like 4 times. Like 4 or 5 times, seriously. Since the merger.
Yeah.
It's been bad. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have heard firsthand about some of what's going on that level, and it's a whole mix of things. It's like everything from those who are hypochondriacs sort of crowding the ER, demanding testing,
Right.
which takes away time and resources from those who are very much sick, to just being worried about the supplies, and the personnel themselves are taking on great risks.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's a lot. There's a lot to be said around that. I think what needs to happen politically is a little less focus on like the things that are ripping us apart and sort of political grandstanding, and more focus on, okay, what
Actually
can
serving the
we
people.
serve?
Yeah.
Yes, serve. Like serve
You got
the
your
people.
position.
Yes.
Now serve the people.
Yeah.
I think that makes total sense, but okay.
Yeah.
So on a lighter note,
Yes.
what are the songs that are making you want to get on the dance floor these days?
Oh wow, that's a total flip.
That's a total flip.
So I've been fairly obsessed with that song "Girl, Put Your Records On."
Oh, Corinne Bailey Rae?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that song. Love
Yeah.
her. She's made a lot of good music, but not a lot of it hit the radio. Yeah.
Yeah, but I am fairly obsessed with that song, so I will dance to it, alone in my home.
Is that like jazz pop thing, kind of like your flow? Is that your genre to go to, or?
I like that, and I like a lot of neo soul.
Okay.
You know what they call the neo soul
Yeah.
genre. So.
To be fair, though, I don't
Yeah.
feel there's been soul music since Motown, in my personal opinion. I'm one of those guys.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
everything's neo soul after like the mid '80s, as far as I'm concerned.
You know what?
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's no longer soul.
Well, I do like a good old school Motown jam too.
Yes.
I will mellow out with that. That's
Always,
I
always.
could do that.
Can't go wrong with Temptations.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, Pointer Sisters.
Now, you played basketball, but is that your favorite sport? Like, are you going to go home and watch a game, or you're like, it was just a thing? No. So do you have a favorite sport?
I don't do a lot of watching sports.
Or even playing? No? No?
I do love to swim.
That counts.
So, and when the Olympics is on, I do
Oh.
love watching the Olympic stuff, and especially the swimming.
I'm telling you, the moment that this became a no sports thing, I was going like, this is going to be gone by August, right? Like, this is just has to be gone by August. I don't care. We will find a random island that could have never gotten this and make that Olympic village. I love swimming. I'm Caribbean, so I love me some track. You know,
Okay.
I'm all about all the different. For me, there's not a lot of international sports that's really on TV in America. You get stuck with football,
Yeah.
baseball. Our number one sport is NASCAR, basketball. You can even find soccer. They've made that readily available, even internationally, just because it's the world's number one sport. But I love getting the opportunity to watch table tennis. I love getting the opportunity to watch
That's
judo,
interesting. I
karate
haven't
competitions.
tried that one.
That is one of the
Table
most
tennis?
intense things. When you see two Chinese guys, and I'm not trying to be racist, I mean literally, they are the number one country in the world. Other countries will like make their citizens move to there. Like Singapore would be like, come here and live here for 6 years, be a citizen, so you can play for us in the next Olympics kind of situation. When you get over the age of 21, you're too old. You're considered too old and too slow to compete with how high a level they play. It is one of the most intense things you'll ever see. It's very impressive. But like you got.
You know what? I might give that a try.
All right. And last thing, if you're gonna go out after all this Corona stuff to your favorite restaurant, but you want to do it after 8 just to be like, Corona's over, what's the food you're gonna eat?
Oh, I'm definitely going to go to Renaissance Harlem, which is down the block from me. It's 132nd and 7th Avenue. Shameless plug. It's a great place. And I'm going to they have like a pasta. Wow, you think I would remember the name? Nope, it's gone. But it's basically one of they have a couple really great vegan dishes because I'm vegan, so, and they have a pasta that has like asparagus and mushroom, and it's delicious. So,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
See,
Yeah.
It's less about knowing the name and know what you're looking for on the menu.
When I see it,
It's like this. I want this.
Yeah. Also, to be fair, that me and my girlfriend have frequented there so much that half the time, like, they know.
All right.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, you want the
Going to
usual.
order this, yes.
You've been in a place too long when they start calling it the
Exactly.
usual.
Exactly.
For sure. All right, so we have 5 minutes left. So I've been enjoying this enough that I'm gonna skip what I normally do at the ending, and what I'll end up doing is I'll be posting it on the Will's Review page on Facebook. So if you want, movies to be watching or to, what to skip on your Netflix, Amazon, and whatnot, I'll post it up there after the show tonight. And to our friends of the week, your pictures will be up next week, but if you want, I'll put it up this week. Just DM me. You already know how it goes. But no, I'll get to it later. This is the best part about having your own show. You can run it how you want to run it. Yeah, Ellen's not the only one that can do that. But yeah, no. So all right, if you're gonna pick a favorite place in Harlem, what's it gonna be? And I think that's a toughie. Mine is easy. Mine is very easy.
Oh, that is a toughie, and I know a couple people might be mad at me for not naming their place, but I probably go with Seasoned Vegan.
That's your spot?
It's a good spot. It's a good spot. It's a nice place for a vegan.
See,
it's delicious.
I like how we're on the same wavelength that it's food. Mine is the complete total opposite. Mine is right over there, and it's just past District 9, but on Amsterdam, Jimbo's.
Oh, okay, you're a Jimbo's person.
That is my spot.
All right, and what do you get at Jimbo's?
Me, I'm gonna get, because I'm not really a big dairy person, but I'm gonna go and get a hamburger with cooked onions and ketchup, the vanilla shake.
Pancakes.
Oh, you like the pancakes, but I'm not.
Jimbo's.
Yeah, no, I'm not getting Jimbo's pancakes. I'm getting the burger with the cooked onions, the vanilla shake, and the onion rings smothered in ketchup. That's my way to go. Personally.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Now, you are an independent business owner amongst many other things we've already discussed. So tell them a little bit about your business and where they can find you and where they can find more information out on the campaign if we didn't get through everything tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's definitely more info on both fronts. The independent business-wise, I'm the owner of Pens Up Press. So that's Pens Up, like pen like a writing pen, so PEN, pensup.com. And you can find out there about some of my own work. I've published 2 poetry books. I also work with independent artists of color to publish different activist work. So if you're an author or you love reading, you could check that out. Campaign-wise, and I'm really going to plug this, please go sign up at kristinforharlem.com. We have town halls planned. We're making it virtual. We're also doing some virtual happy hours. Then when we get back on the ground, we'll keep doing our thing. We are really making change in the neighborhood. The whole mission of the campaign is to disrupt the district with radical love. So if you live in District 9, which we have said is Central Harlem, or if you are a just big advocate for radical love, then you can sign up. So that's Kristin for Harlem, Kristin for Harlem.com.
All right. And above all this, I think you can agree wherever you stand on a political view or stance, I think the most important thing is to just make sure you register to vote and make yourself heard. I mean, we want the politicians to work for us. I think in the end, we have to show that we actually care.
Yeah, getting involved. That's it.
If you're someone who,
Get
you're
involved.
one of those conspiracy people who, don't really care for all that, just remember, you can get involved in your community. A lot of what Kristin's talked here about tonight is about actually being active in your own community. If you are someone with a business or you're someone of a profession that can help out your local schools and things like that, you don't have to wait for somebody to come knocking on your door.
Yeah, there are tons of ways to get involved. And it's not just about the voting. We're doing work on the ground right now. I mean, in this moment, we're calling seniors and checking in with them. We're finding ways to have a community response to the coronavirus. So, if you can donate time, donate money, and help with those efforts too, that's great.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I'm glad having you on. I didn't even get to half the stuff I had planned just because this was good. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And I'll probably bump into you around the block.
Yeah, I brought you a pin.
Yeah, a pin. All right. And see, she's been looking at this thing this entire time. She actually has it here. There's a flyer with a little picture on it. The whole back of it has the whole Harlem plan. I posted it on my Perni Future Circle page. It's also on the Will's Review page, so I'll repost it so you guys can see it all over again. But yeah, just show love. And, check her out. If you have any more questions, she put the way to reach her and
Yeah, KristinForHarlem.com.
or
Say it
Harlem.com.
again.
And
Yeah.
4 is spelled out with the word for, by the way. Just that. You spelled the Kristen part, but the 4,
Yeah.
everybody will do that. All right, guys. We'll catch you guys next time.
Excuse me, I'm next in line. Move. Excuse me, I'm next in line.